welcome to Crafts and Crime. I'm Amy.
I'm Elaine.
And as always, we have a craft and a crime.
Mm-hmm.
And we, now I'm like super aware of it.
Oh my gosh.
So we had, I'm going to have to turn this up so I could hear.
That's fine.
So this entire time that we have been recording, this is what, episode 25 or something like that?
I think so.
The setup that we have, the soundboard thing or whatever, only has one headphone jack. And so we have to use a headphone splitter because there's two of us. And so we did. We, got one. I think you got the first one and then I got the replacement because we thought after the dog basically took off with the whole thing. So that means
we now have two fully functioning cords, but not for our purpose.
Not for what we need. So we messed up and so we've been using the wrong, it wasn't a headphone splitter. It was a headphone and what was the other one? Microphone, yeah. I'm like, I can't think straight. Yep, it's been, I've been listening to it really quiet this whole time. I just thought that's how it was, and it wasn't until it was like, oh, there's a little kink in we're all tangled up. Let's switch it, and I must have switched whose headphones plugs into what, and I was like, whoa, it's
yeah. Because we unplugged them, pulled out the kinks in the cord.
And then I just didn't pay attention.
How did we get it wrong?
Yeah, because I just grabbed it too.
And I was like, no, we broke it.
Yeah, because she was like,
what you have been hearing sounds when we swap the cables, to me, it sounds like raspy and like very airy and far away in like hearing. So that's how you're hearing it this whole time.
Yep. And all the Patreon episodes that we've done, and
but at least nobody else hears it that way.
I know,
that's
because,
the plus side.
But then I'm like,
you're going to be consciously aware of it now.
I'm still listening to it when I edit too. That's how I hear it when I edit.
You'll have to use my headphones or just plug it into the other one now.
Yeah.
Just remember, for right now.
It's one of those things where I'm like, oh my gosh, we're so stupid. Like when we first tried to set up the microphone and yours was backwards. This is all new to us.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Did that take us the whole episode to
when
we had to, oh my god, we got a bunch done and then we had to stop.
No.
Wasn't it that one?
No, it was when we were doing our sound test runs in the beginning remember when we were recording just to see how we sound and edit and stuff, and our trial run before we released anything to the public.
Yeah.
And we were just trying to figure out the microphones,
which is now what we call the booty in the front, because it's like a little peach looking shape,
because it was backwards when she put it on there.
And
so it was like, why am I so quiet?
The other little button we call the line, or the whoop. And like we keep it on the line because a little whoop sound makes a different sound we don't like. And then the other side is 0 decibels to negative 10 decibels, but we're like 0 douchebags, 10 douchebags.
So we always
this is a back look in our life.
I know, we don't
your
know.
Butt's forward.
You're
on the front. 0. Your butt's in the front. 0 douchebags, and it's on the straight line.
It's how we get stuff done because we have to
the check-in.
It's like, and then is your phone on silent? So
and then like
and then
the next time we record, my phone was still on silent. Unless you remind me. Then I remember.
I usually remember when I take my phone off silent because we're sitting together still. So so we're just learning as we go, but
obviously.
So we're gonna have to get all of our recording done today because tomorrow we have a planned power outage. And it's gonna be like hot still. Isn't it like 88 or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. And of course it's not one of the days it's going to be super overcasty, but then that would make it really humid. When I went out this morning it was really humid. It has been. I'm always the first one to be like, oh, I love fall down here at least because the mornings are really cool and the evenings tend to be cooler. Not right now.
We got random
really warm
rain out of nowhere this week
because of all this humidity.
Yeah, was it
that El Nino effect?
Sunday? Yeah, it was Sunday because my parents took the older kids. And for the week so that they could go to the beach and stuff. And it was the first day, and it was like raining all morning. And so
that was weird.
It was weird, but I liked it.
The chickens loved it.
Yeah,
I let them out.
Oh, you did?
And they just like because it's just the two girls.
Yeah. I know, Feline's gone.
Yeah, my baby boy, my huge, big old
not
baby.
Not gone like
Huey.
that.
No, not gone like that.
Went to a different home.
Yep, I had been searching around forever, and it hadn't occurred to me. Well, it did a few weeks ago, and then I was like, oh crap, when I was gone. But which was, I made a contact with a wildlife rehabber because of a hummingbird that my in-laws had, and I remembered her talking to me about, because I was asking her about volunteering.
Did we talk about this last time? I can't remember.
I'm not sure.
We talk about it too much.
Yeah, we talk about the chickens all the time. But no, I don't think so, because that was
over the weekend, right?
Last weekend. It was
oh,
like,
yeah.
So yeah, we haven't yet. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just the weekend that passed.
I'm like, I don't know.
So
I don't want our listeners to be like, you already told that story.
That's fine. You can hear it again.
Yeah.
So everything, like, the dynamic is different, but honestly, of course I miss him a lot, but the place he went to is really good, because the lady that took him, I remember her talking about, like, oh, she will, like, one place has, like, the hawks and roosters and crows and all. I was like, wow. So I got a hold of her, and I had been trying to find him a home for like 3 months, and it took her 25 minutes.
Yep.
To find
the
two.
Connections.
To find two.
Two people.
Yeah. One of them was someone she knew personally, and another one was a contact she had gotten for rehoming a really adorable female Peking duck. And so Feline had a buddy in the car on the drive, and the woman told me that he did really great on the drive. And then I got a little video of the place he's going to, and it's like big like a big bachelor pad that has like all male animals. So it's like male, they have no females to fight over, so it's like geese. There were geese and ducks and the roosters
all together.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You could see there were like separated pens, so I think they naturally migrated to their own places. But I saw like the guy had I think she said his name was Brad. That he really like has a really good connection to birds. It's like his specialty. So he rescues like macaws and cockatoos, like all of them. So I was like, okay. And one of the pictures had a whole bunch of other Rhode Island red roosters that I'm pretty sure that's what Feline was, taking little dust bath in cat boxes. They were like little litter trays full of the sand and stuff. And it was really cute. So I know he went somewhere really nice. Yeah. And he went out to Anaheim Hills, which is like
nice.
A really nice area. So he's like really well taken care of. That's who I would be if I had a lot of money.
Yeah, you could just call him Fresh Prince now.
Oh my god.
Not Bel Air, but
so funny.
But yeah, he's moving on up.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, he was really loud, and I almost
he started at like 4:30 in the morning too, which is weird. It does not matter that the sun's not up.
No. And I almost mentioned, because you said there were two people that were interested in him, and I almost was like, what about Fluffy Cheeks, my rooster? But he's so quiet, he doesn't crow. Like,
I hear him all the time.
I never do.
That's funny. See,
and Troy and Avery never do. And their room's right by.
It's like, but I'm always awake in the morning, and I'm up and out. And what's happening though is it's not. I'm positive.
Okay.
Because what was happening is it was like a 4-way crow. Because there's two other crows. There's two other roosters in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
There's the one that I think we kind of always heard that's, I'm showing like everyone can see, like in the back part of our neighborhood. But now I'm hearing two, one in the back and then one way down further. And so what would happen is Feline would usually start, and then I would hear Fluffy Cheeks' little weak.
Yeah, maybe that's why I don't.
And then
it's like barely anything.
And then the other ones down the street would start, and then they were the ones that would keep going and going and going and going. And the thing is, like, different breeds are very specific in like how often they crow. Are they vocal? Like ducks are the same way. And so Rhode Island Reds are like, I guess, in between annoying and sometimes they're not. But he just was, because he was constantly hearing them and with females around.
Yeah. And then I have quail, and they're just cute. They sound like toy guns or
They're
something.
crazy though. I'll be up at like 3:00 in the morning, and I'm sitting outside, and they hear my lighter, and they're like, and they just do it the whole time. And it's really funny because I'm wondering, like, the neighbors are like, there's like new pretty birds, and I think it's hilarious because I'm wondering what they think.
I know if they have any idea that it's a quail.
Exactly. I wouldn't.
I didn't know what a quail sounded like until I looked it up, and this was before I got quail, because I was like, how loud are they? And I know they're good for backyards. Because they can be really quiet, and you could have one male. I have multiples in there, so that's, I think, why it's multiple going off. Like,
they're waking up,
and they tend to kind of,
because I try to be super quiet because it's late.
Yeah,
and it
but you know what? the neighbors next to me, their birds are really loud. They're
the little
parakeets and stuff. Yeah.
Little
so
budgies.
I'm like, and then they're dogs, man. I think last week when we recorded, they were barking at the end of the episode.
Were they?
Yeah. I could hear it and I was like, So
funny.
I don't know if it showed up on audio. I didn't check.
Oh.
But yeah, so we got a lot of animals. And then this weekend, it's Tuesday as we're recording, but this weekend on Sunday, Jack drove out and got 3 bunnies.
Oh, yeah. It's so funny. After you told me, that's when I saw the post.
Yeah?
Yeah, after you had told me, like, look what I'm getting. I was scrolling through, and wasn't it in the SoCal chicken group?
It was a chicken group, yeah.
But, yeah, so they were like, help. And then I saw it, and I said, oh, my God, those are the bunnies.
Yeah, so they're really cute. They're lion heads. One of them for sure is a lion head. I think the other 2 are mixed. But yeah, they're small. They're really cute. They're black and white, and then the other one's like that caramel color with like a white stripe on its forehead. So added it to the colony out in our backyard. So Jack was like, how many more rabbits do we need? And I was like, well, they're different. So because I'm like, well, because think about it. If you had a lion head, that really pretty white fluffy lion head, and they're small and they stay small like Holland Lops. I was like, what if I mixed it with my male Holland Lop that's all white? That would be so pretty.
Is the white one a girl?
Yeah, it's 2 girls and 1 boy. So
which one's the boy?
The other white one. So there's 2 white ones. One doesn't have as long of hair or fur, and then the other one has longer fur, and that's the girl.
Oh, okay.
So, and then the caramel one is the girl. So
Cute.
2 girls and a boy. And just like with roosters, people don't like to keep a lot of roosters. You know, you don't really need a rooster. You don't need a rooster to get eggs. But same thing with rabbits. People typically want girl rabbits, but in my experience, my boys have been a lot sweeter than my girls. So if you're thinking about getting a rabbit, consider a boy, because they are always the ones left behind. Anytime I have people contacting me like, oh, do you have any bunnies? And it's like, oh, I have like 3 boys left. Those 3 boys that I have out there, and nobody wants them. And then they get to an age where nobody wants a full grown rabbit. But I'm like, I don't think people realize rabbits grow fast.
Yeah.
I mean, especially seeing them from when they're first born and they're tiny little peanuts. And then it's like in a week, they're like big and moving around and hopping around. And then like,
when they're first born, they look like premature and wrong because they're so clear and little and
you
little
can see
jelly
through
beans.
their bellies and stuff.
And it takes quite a lot to develop before anybody sees them, really. But we see them because you go digging around to check on them and stuff, but outside that they would never leave the mommy's belly underneath her, and so people don't realize that like the little fluffy cuteness is like later. It takes a minute.
It takes a bit, and then they grow to adults really fast. So that's why I have a small window of time to sell bunnies. Adopt, you know what I mean. And in the state of California, I don't know about other states, but you can't buy rabbits in a pet store.
California is so progressive with stuff like that. We're the only ones. We're the only ones that charge animal abuse as a felony now, to the point where we've mentioned this before, I think, too, which is a lot of our neighbors are committing felonies. But it's I don't think it's terrible to leave your dog outside for a little bit, but this is like they're all night, all day, summer, winter, it doesn't matter. That's a felony. Locked up, caged up, a perfect doghouse mansion, it does not matter. The laws are pretty specific here now.
The people that lived in that house across the street from us that those people just bought, they used to tie their dog up out front. And animal control came by and went knocking on the door. They quick saw the animal control truck and took it inside, and they were like,
he was just going potty.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And
they would let that
so
little dog out all the time.
Here it is like sad to leave a dog outside because it's so hot. It's unfair. And I know that you can't, of course you can't sell bunnies in pet stores, which is weird because you can sell guinea pigs and rats and stuff. But you can also not sell bred, like any kind of bred cat or dog. So pet stores, they're adoption only. Like not adoption only, but rescued only. That's the only thing that's allowed. So that's super cool. I mean, they're still breeders, of course, but it's just trying to take down the massive backyard breeders that are like pumping out 1 million Pomeranians for PetSmart, even though PetSmart hasn't sold dogs or cats anywhere that I'm allowed, like Petco, none of those. I know a lot of people don't love Petco and PetSmart. There's like all kinds of things. But like I know that a lot of places have stopped just in general because they can't keep up. They're too busy. They can't keep up with the needs of those small animals. So they do the really cute little, they have those little cages with like a few of the cats up for adoption. I don't even think they do puppies. They just do kitty cats.
I think
up for adoption.
Only cats. They'll do adoption events. And
yeah.
That's when they'll bring in dogs and stuff. But no, I breed rabbits, but not pumping them out. Now I have 4 females, and I do kind of breed mix and stuff, but to get a cute little bunny, rabbits that are a little smaller, but then I have some that are bigger, and there is demand out there for the girls. But yeah, so I'm on a registry, and so people will call me up and, hey, do you have any rabbits for sale? And so I'm like, yeah, I do. So that's kind of what I do on the side. But they don't have a bunch of litters each year. I think one of them I think both of the females out there only had 1 litter this last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
and it was spring, like right before Easter.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that's when everyone wants rabbits.
I don't adopt out rabbits around the holidays.
Yeah.
Because they end up like probably what my mom's rabbit is.
Exactly. Yep.
Probably an Easter bunny.
Right. And they're like, this is hard. And they smell and it's a lot of work.
So that's how my mom got her rabbit. It was obviously someone's pet, and they just and the age was right. I was like, that was totally an Easter bunny buy. So I never sell around the holidays and stuff. But man, we've been talking about animals for a long time.
16 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
That's a record.
It is. So
all right.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So I was like, oh yeah, I go first. Because I always forget. I'm like, okay, you going to talk? No.
I know.
So it was 2 episodes ago, I did butter. Oh, yeah. So we actually made butter. Oh, this is an update. Me and the kids made butter. And
I was gone, right?
Yeah. And the kids didn't last long because I put it in a mason jar and I was like, here, shake it. And
I think they thought it was going to happen in like 20 seconds.
It actually did happen pretty quick. And then Jack kind of helped, but then Jack overshook it. And so it didn't turn out. It got too like whipped or whatever. So I did the other carton of heavy whipping cream or heavy cream in the stand mixer. And it actually made nice butter. Yay! So I did it. I made butter. Would I do it again? No. It's cheaper just to buy a pound of butter.
Oh my God, I know. Heavy cream is so expensive.
It is. It was way more expensive than just getting a pound of butter. So anyway, I made butter. And so with butter on the brain, and what I kind of left off on some fun facts on the butter episode is I'm doing butter sculpting.
Oh my God.
Not like I'm actually doing it.
Like at the fair.
Yes.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Okay, there's a lot of information from the fairs and
it's
stuff,
funny because here is like fair season for us. We like in just California, not Southern California, all of California. Fair season is like right around now because it's so freaking hot.
Yeah, so we wait till it cools off a bit.
I wish we could go to the LA County Fair.
I haven't been there in
that's
years.
A freaking drive.
It is.
And it's expensive.
It is,
but it's like got the most it's got like the most variety in food of like any fair and the West Coast.
Yeah. So there's a lot of butter sculptures at fairs. I don't know about out here. It's more of a Midwest thing. It's a Midwest thing. But okay, so butter sculptures, obviously what it sounds like, it's a 3-dimensional, artwork made with butter. You sculpt the butter into stuff. So the sculptures are usually like people, animals, you could basically anything that you could sculpt from clay, you could sculpt from butter pretty much, which is just weird to think.
It really is.
As we were just talking, there's competitions around the U.S. and usually they take place at state fairs. Butter sculptures can actually be found in more places than just county fair competition.
Awesome.
People would put them on like banquet tables and like little decorative butter pats and stuff. So
cute
for like a party. And a lot of butter sculptures are life-sized, which I think is just crazy. And I will talk about that a lot because people have made
I have questions already.
Yeah, life-size butter sculptures of people and like and most commonly cows. So carving food into sculptures is nothing new. Bread and pudding molds had been found at sites from Babylon to Roman Britain. And during
all like our food fancy still.
Yep. And during the Renaissance and Baroque periods in Europe, molding food was done for like typically the wealthy banquets, because it's like
being showy.
You know, it's not just like, here's your food.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like, here's your fancy food. So
try the great stuff. It's delicious.
So this is the time period that the earliest butter sculpture reference is found in
I love
15.
this.
I didn't think butter would make sense. Butter makes me
so
happy.
funny.
It is really weird. So,
and it's something I've never looked up. Like we always talk about.
Yeah.
I know what it is, but okay, sorry.
I learned a lot. So there's a lot of information in this. So in 1536, the cook for Pope Pius V his name was Bartolomeo Scappi, whatever, put together a feast, and in this feast there were 9 scenes of carved out food, and they were used as centerpieces.
Nice.
There were multiple butter sculptures in the centerpieces, so it was food and butter sculptures, which included an elephant with a palanquin, which is like the covered carrier that transports a person. There was also a butter sculpture of Hercules struggling with a lion, and a Moor on a camel. And a Moor is a term like referred to, like at that time it was the like Muslim group of people, but not specifically. Another reference to someone sculpting butter is Antonio Canova, who lived from 1757 to 1822. And as a boy, he sculpted a butter lion for a banquet. And so butter sculpting continued through the 18th century.
Yeah.
And English maids molded butter pats into like decorative shapes. So people were just getting fancy with their butter. So the earliest butter sculpture as a form of art, so not just like, it's for the fancy table or whatever. So as art was at the 1876 Centennial Exhibition. Carolyn Sock Brooks, who was a farm woman from Helena, Arkansas, showed her butter sculpture she named Dreaming Iolanth. I think that's how you say it. It's Iolanthe. Iolanth? I should have looked that up.
That sounds right.
Yeah. It was a bowl of butter, and then she sculpted into that bowl of butter, and it was a sculpted bust of a woman. So, like, you know, from chest up. Okay. So the bust of a woman. Not the boobs of the woman, but like a bust.
My brain was literally like butter booby bowl.
No, she did not.
Sorry.
She did not sculpt boobs.
I'm a 14-year-old boy.
Probably from like the collarbone.
Yeah,
up.
exactly. A bust is like,
well, not probably. I know it is. It's the top half because I've seen the picture, which I will post because it's really gorgeous.
Cool.
And the way that it was kept cold, because think this is 1876.
Yeah.
The way that it was kept cold, it was like layers of bowls, and they would just change the ice a lot to keep it cold. And so she wasn't formally trained in art, but she spent a lot of years on the farm making butter, and so she was like, let's just make it more interesting.
Yeah.
So she then started just sculpting it and was able to use it even as like a selling point for her butter.
That's
like,
super cool.
It's all pretty, so you want to buy the pretty butter. And she made the butter and then made it pretty. It then turned into an art for her, and in 1873 she made the Dreaming Iolanth. I hope I'm saying that right. And she redid that same sculpture over and over throughout the years. So like the same, because think about it, it's butter, it's food, it's going to go bad. So she would just re-sculpt it all over again. And like throughout the years at exhibitions, I can't say the word, exhibitions all over the U.S. So she would just carve the same thing again out of butter. And at that 1876 Centennial Exhibition, her sculpture got so much attention that she was then invited to sculpt for live crowds. So like watching her sculpt in her butter.
Oh my God, that would make me so anxious. Like, don't watch me.
I know.
Okay, I'll go behind a curtain and I'll go, ta-da!
Yeah. So she then went to Paris and Florence and studied and became a professional sculptor. And then she worked with marble, but she still did her butter sculptures. She then went to the 1893 Chicago Columbian Exposition and made busts of Queen Isabella and Christopher Columbus. And you could find these pictures. They're really cool. And the biggest years for butter sculpture were between 1890 and 1930. And that's because obviously refrigeration was becoming more common. And so you could preserve the butter for much longer. It was also used in the U.S. as a way to promote butter because at the time margarine was being promoted.
Yeah.
And we know margarine's not butter. It's like synthetic, it's oil, you know. So butter sculpting then obviously decreased in popularity during the Great Depression and World War II because of shortages. You know, so you're not gonna be buying butter just to sculpt and play with it. You know. So, but then after the war, it kind of returned. So we're gonna start talking now about the state fairs, because that is a big thing. It is in history, you know, all these butter sculptures, but here in the U.S. we kind of took it a little extra.
As we do.
Yeah, and we definitely continue to do so. So the first butter cow sculpture was at the Ohio State Fair in 1903.
Of course it's Ohio. I love Ohio, but like the farming stuff. And
it was sculpted by A.T. Shelton and Company. This then became a fair tradition in Ohio every year, and it still is.
Love it.
The first butter sculpture of a cow in Iowa was in 1911 at the Iowa State Fair, and it was sculpted by John K. Daniels, and it was actually sponsored by the Beatrice Creamery Company, which is now part of ConAgra Foods. So like it was, they're just promoting butter, I guess. So we'll sponsor your cow, you know, sculpture.
So that means they gave him all the butter he needed. Yeah, that's cool.
And
it probably cost a bunch.
And it obviously is a way to promote dairy products in the area, because then you're like, ooh, I want to get this butter. That looks like good butter, you know. So it was so successful that butter sculpture, it's so weird saying butter sculpture so many times. It continued at the state fair every year. So different artists created the butter cow for the state fair. John Daniels created sculptures every year, and then J.E. Wallace from Florida created butter sculptures after him all the way up until 1956. And Wallace created a second sculpture every year in addition to the cow. So he would just do like an extra one. And it was people doing like everyday activities like butter churning or playing with a dog. And so it's so weird to think it's just butter. Earl Frank Dutt from Illinois became the third official sculptor. So they always had like an official sculptor that would do the cow, and then like, you know, Wallace did the extra one. And so then Dutt then became the official sculptor. Then he was actually trained in art at the Art Institute of Chicago, and he sculpted with obviously many different materials like clay and all that, but that also includes butter. So he sculpted cows in Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So yeah, definitely not on the West Coast where we are. And then his second sculptures that he would do, that he like included in with the cow, were like kind of cartoonish, such as fights between political party mascots or a parade of smiling pigs. I love it. I'm like, I want to see that one.
Like chubby little piggies,
butter pigs. So Dutt was the one who trained Norma Duffy Lyon, who is known as the Butter Cow Lady. And that is how she was known. And this is why. So she started her career as the assistant to Frank Duff, who was the one doing the sculptures every year. So she was the assistant in 1959. She had seen a picture of his butter sculpture and told the fair director that she could do better. And so
wow.
Yeah, so in 1960 she actually took over the butter sculpture, I keep saying the butter sculpture job, and she was the first female to do so because it was all men before this.
Nice.
And she created from 1960 all the way until 2005 a new butter sculpture for the fair every year.
Oh, so not just the cow.
That was
dang cool.
She did the cow, and then an additional, so she did the butter sculptures, but she was known as the Butter Cow Lady. She did it for so long. Some of her popular and well-known butter sculptures were of Garth Brooks, John Wayne, Elvis Presley.
I swear I have seen the Garth Brooks one. Did she do Dolly Parton?
I don't know. I didn't see that, but I just know her most well-known ones. Yeah, Garth Brooks, Garth Brooks, John Wayne, Elvis Presley, and the full scene of The Last Supper.
Oh my God.
I'm like, that's a lot of carving.
That's crazy.
So
that's intense.
She also sculpted butter cows for other states such as Illinois and Utah. And in 2006, she retired due to her health. Just, she can't do it anymore. And then her apprentice, Sarah Pratt, took over. So Sarah Pratt's, I guess, been doing it since 2006. So the So here's the process, if you're wondering, which I know you are.
And I also need to know if everybody gets to eat it afterwards.
We'll get there.
That's what I figured, but I'm like, it's killing me.
Okay, so the process is, so we're going to do the process of sculpting a cow.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready.
And they generally follow the same steps. You know, each artist kind of does the same general steps. So they start with choosing one of the 6 dairy cattle breeds. There are Holstein, Guernsey, Jersey, brown swine, Ayrshire. Do you know that one?
It doesn't sound familiar at all.
And milking Sorthorn.
Wow.
I probably said some of those wrong. I know Jersey cow.
They are the cutest. The tan and white with the big long eyelashes, and they're little.
Yeah. So they would choose their cow. Then they would make a drawing of the cow, or they would take a bunch of pictures to kind of, work off of. The butter has to be the right consistency to work with, and it's described as feeling like cold cream, which I'm like, cold cream, so maybe like creamier and not so hard, firm. Cold cream.
It's like a face, like Olay makes it.
Yeah, so a butter, like a smoother consistency, not so like
crazy.
Hard.
Yeah, it's not going to be. That's like thin. That's weird.
So,
that's like very
I don't
soft.
know.
Crazy.
But
my brain was like cold cream, like that's runny, and I get it. I was like cold cream, like oh my god, okay,
yeah. So
that's interesting.
So this is the cow that they're sculpting, and about 500 to 600 pounds, or 226 to 272 kilograms of butter are used to make the cow.
Okay.
Now, sculptors move from working in chilled rooms to large refrigerated display cases with temperatures between 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, or 1 to 4 degrees Celsius.
I wish my working environment could be that cold.
The butter is placed on a wooden and wire armature, which is like the framework. So it's not a solid chunk of butter.
Yeah.
It's like anything else. If you're working with clay, you're putting it on this armature thing. So it's got wire, you're patting the butter on the wire.
Yeah.
So it's funny because I was like, man, that's got to be a heavy cow. And then I was like, oh, that actually wouldn't work. It would just, atomically it wouldn't work, because think cow's tiny little legs, and then all the weight of the butter is on these like tiny little legs. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, that makes totally a lot of sense. Right. It's on a wire frame. Yeah. So large amounts are added to get the general shape, and then smaller amounts of butter are added later to obviously fine tune the piece. And layer upon layer is added until the cow is in its finished form. And this,
it's crazy. Sorry, it makes so much sense that it would be soft like that, because they're like painting it on, and it's gonna chill really fast because the lower structure is colder.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay.
Yeah, I know. As I'm like reading it, I'm like,
I'm just thinking giant blocks of butter are like hammered down. It's not at all.
No, they just slap on some butter, and then they'd like use their tools and carve it,
build it up,
sculpt it. So this whole process could take, from beginning to end of sculpting a cow in butter, it could take anywhere from 2 days to a week. So the butter cow, as it's known, has never been at the Minnesota State Fair. They don't have a butter cow at theirs, but they do have butter sculptures. And this was so interesting. I had no idea this is a thing. So the 12 finalists of the Princess K of the Milky Way are carved in butter. The finalists are women from Minnesota between the ages of 16 and 23. And it's like it's like any princess contest. So there's like
a pageant. It's a beauty pageant for the farm.
So they are. It's so funny because I was like, what, when I read this.
Okay.
The likeness of them are sculpted out of a 90-pound or 40-kilogram block of butter.
Wow.
Each day, one of the 12 are carved, and the carving is currently done by Linda Christensen, who is a California sculptor who was originally from Minnesota. And get this, the princess poses for her on a turning platform in a chilled display case, and then she carves out her likeness out of butter in about 6 hours.
Amazing.
So it's like a head statue of yourself in butter. And then it's displayed for the rest of the fair. And then when the fair is over, each princess can take hers home and use it however she wants. So
Grandma makes you put it in the freezer.
I know.
Don't you dare eat it.
They'll sometimes use it. Like some of them have used it for like graduation parties or wedding ceremonies. How conceited do you have to be like, so here is a butter sculpture of me. Not my husband, but me. Yeah. So, okay, so that's a lot in the U.S. It's weird. We got cows and butter, and the cows make the milk to make the butter, and then they're made into
princesses.
Yeah, princesses. So now we're gonna jump to butter sculpture in Canada. So in 1924 and 1925, the Prince of Wales was sculpted in butter in 2 separate sculptures and was put in refrigerated cases in the Canadian Pavilion at the British English. Oh my gosh, I can't read. British Empire Exhibition at Wembley Park, Wembley, Northwest London. They were displays of patriotism and were like, obviously, as here in the U.S., advertisement for the dairy industry. In 1924, the sculpture was of the prince standing by his horse outside his ranch at Pekisko, Alberta. 3,000 pounds or 1,360 kilograms of butter was used to make the sculpture. That's
Canada ain't messing around,
I know. I was like, not even the cows. Cow was like 900. This is 3,000 pounds. That's a lot of butter.
That's insane.
And the 1925 sculpture showed the prince seated in the dress of a First Nations chief by the Assiniboine. I hope I'm saying that right. The First Nations women in the sculpture was the only reference to Canada's First Nations in the Canadian Pavilion. And the prince was actually pleased with both sculptures. And Queen Mary, his mom, said it was, quote, quite a remarkable likeness. So it looked a lot like him. The British press declared the 1925 sculpture, one of the wonders of Wembley. And then after World War II, Canadian Cream Producers Marketing Board and the Dairy Producers of Canada used butter sculpting to advertise. Obviously, butter, make butter pretty and it'll sell better,
It's funny. It's butter.
It's just butter.
It's ugly.
Yeah. And just like the US, they were marketing it because margarine was becoming popular then. So butter sculptures were displayed at both the Canadian National Exhibition and Royal Agriculture Winter Fairs in Toronto. Ross Butler was the first Canadian artist to sculpt butter at these fairs, and he was known as a farm animal artist. And he created life-size sculptures between 1947 and 1954. And now some of his creations were, these are so cute, Bessie the butter cow with her calf Buttercup, Barbara the milkmaid and her butter cow, Ideal Guernsey, I don't know who that is, but it was a popular one, Canadian Olympic figure skater Barbara Ann Scott, Laura Secord and her cow, Royal Canadian Mounted Policeman, and Queen Elizabeth II on her horse Winston. So, and these are all life-sized. So,
crazy.
Life-size horse, life-size person. Yeah, big. And they were sculpted in refrigerated glass cased enclosures and were displayed for, once again, the entire time of the fair. The last butter sculptures Ross Butler made were Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip at the Western Fair in London, Ontario in 1956. Then he went back to working with clay. He was done with butter. And
it was just a phase.
Yeah, it was his butter phase. In 1986, a tribute to Ross Butler at the Royal Agriculture Winter Fair was a butter sculpture done in his likeness by Windsor artist Christopher Reese. So, when Australians, now we go to Australia, when they saw the success of the Prince of Wales and butter in the Canadian Pavilion in 1924, they decided to place a larger butter sculpture in their pavilion at Wembley Park in 1925.
What is it, like 4,000 pounds now?
I don't know. It didn't say how big it was, but it was of the English cricketer Jack Hobbs being stumped at the Sydney Cricket Ground during the 1924 to 1925 Test Series, which Australia won 4-1. So in Tibet, so we're kind of hopping around.
Wow.
This isn't done by copying. This, in Tibet, butter sculptures, or torma, as they were called, are actually a part of ancient Tibetan Buddhist tradition. I had no idea that was a thing.
That's cool.
Yak butter and dye are used to create temporary ritual offerings for altars during the Tibetan New Year and other religious celebrations. And they're normally bright colored with dye and include milk, flour, and other substances, not just butter. And yak butter is like the ideal butter for this, I guess, but they are very colorful. Like, I could post a picture because I was like, what is that? That's not butter, because it's all colorful. It's like red and blue, and so they use dye. So then the last thing I learned about butter and just a little bit is the butter lamb, or buttered lamb, is a traditional butter sculpture accompanying the Easter meal for many Russian, Slovenian, and Polish Catholics.
I'll have to ask my dad. No, I'll totally have to ask my dad, but I'll have to ask him if his grandma did. Yeah. She was from the old country, but no butter lamb.
Did you grow up with a butter lamb?
But you know what's funny is, like, I'm sure you've seen like those awful, atrocious lamb cakes that are made around Easter that are like the Easter form. So that's our version of that cake. That's funny. I'm gonna have to ask him.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what though? My dad's grandmother, she was not Catholic. She was Protestant.
Oh, so maybe she was
probably not. No, they're much stricter.
So this butter lamb is shaped by hand or by using a lamb-shaped mold of a lamb. And so this, for them, I'll just say what it because it has a meaning. It represents, Jesus, the sacrificial lamb who sacrificed himself on Good Friday. And the butter can also be shaped. They could also do it into a cross to symbolize Christ's goodness. And it is sold at delis, Polish, specialty markets, and some general grocery stores around Easter time. And the butter lamb is a specialty sold at Buffalo, New York's Broadway Market, thanks to, I cannot say this name, Malakazuski's butter lambs, who kept the Polish tradition alive for decades. So brought it to New York.
Oh, that's fun.
And every year during Holy Week, the county executive of Erie County, New York, satirically pardons a butter lamb. So
nobody can eat it.
Nobody can eat that butter lamb.
What is? Do you know like the general size? Because my brain is like, is it?
No, it's not big.
It's just little.
It's just a small,
cute.
a little lamb. Oops. And so on the butter lamb, the eyes are made with peppercorns or dried cloves, and a white banner with a red cross on a toothpick is on its back. So yeah, it's really little. So picture like it would fit on
like a butter dish.
I don't know. It didn't say how big it was, but I just think it's small, like enough butter that you would put out on Easter, like, to go with your rolls. So it's not like a 50-pound butter lamb, a life-size butter lamb.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm like, are we talking like a newborn baby lamb size butter?
No, I think it's probably like, think about like a chocolate Easter bunny. It's probably something like that, like the big one, or like even the small. I don't know. I wonder if there's different sizes that you could buy. Like,
right, you got a big family. You need triple the butter lamb.
Yeah, we got 30 people coming for Easter dinner. We need
a big butter lamb.
We need the big butter lamb. The
extra large. Get the fuck out of here.
Can you tell that we hang out over like becoming the same person?
That was crazy fun. That's so funny.
Yeah, so that's a lot of information about butter sculpting, but I thought it was all fascinating because now I know how to make a butter cow.
And I'm like, my face is stuck. I was
smiling.
You're
smiling the whole time. Me too, because I was
really
like,
funny.
so cool.
It really is. And I really have no words, but it's just so interesting because like a lot of the times in the fair circuits you hear about that kind of stuff, but like you can't do that out here. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and just the area I lived in is where it rains, but all the rest of Oregon is actually pretty rural and farmy and flat and not green. And so I'd always heard of this kind of thing, but not on the West Coast because it's too hot. There's no way, it would suck. But so now
that's a butter lamb.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. Not huge. Yeah. Totally. Like the
just the size of a dish.
Yeah. Like those funny little chocolate Easter bunnies that are like more butt than head. Yeah. Cute. But yeah. And so it's really, really interesting. They had how old it was? No idea. I just thought it was like a a fun country thing, not like forever throughout history thing. That's super cool.
I was shocked to see that it went back so far because, I mean, obviously it did become popular around refrigeration because I'm like, how do you keep all that like from just melting into a pile of butter? Like just, so, or become so squishy or hot that you can't sculpt with it, or like, do people do it in the winter? More? Like you got snow outside and you stick your butter.
And you think about like the holidays are always warm and cozy inside, so it's like even back in the day, Thanksgiving, it's like hot.
True.
Weird. So people did eat them in history, like it was on the table to be pretty, and then you just cut into it for your food.
So it was. I'm sure they had some that was like more for like the food sculptures of like don't touch the sculptures.
What about the huge ones at the fair?
I think they eat them. I don't know. I
see. That's what I want to know. I'm like, is it wasteful?
I can look it up and update at the end of the episode.
But yeah, I'm definitely like I'm interested because that's what I wonder. It's like what it's not been outside, so it's not like flies have gotten to it.
Actually, I don't need to update after. So not what I was expecting. What?
All right, let's hear it.
Okay, so Sarah Pratt reuses the butter. I don't know how. Most of the butter, it's reused for up to 10 years.
So the
smell of aged butter is a spectrum between Parmesan and blue cheese.
Yeah.
Ooh. So she
must scrape it off and like repackage it?
Probably. Can you freeze it?
Yes,
and
you
then
can freeze butter, but it...
Wow. So then this was within 24 hours of arriving on the farm, the butter gets mixed with other inedible food waste, including donations from local supermarkets and restaurants, as well as cow manure. It's then consumed by the farm's digester, and microbes in the anaerobic tank eat the butter and generate methane gas, which is run through an internal combustion engine and turned into electricity.
Dang.
So they turn all those big cows into energy.
Electricity.
That's crazy. But I know those princesses get to take it home. And can you imagine, like, we got a freezer with your head in it, just like, well, let's just take the nose for dinner.
Let's just scrape the back off first so that the face stays okay. That is bananas.
So yeah. Wow, this is going to be a long episode, you guys.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay, so you gonna bring it on down?
Yes.
I know. I'm like, my face is like hurting from smiling.
That was so funny. I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of stuck in the 1800s. I don't know why. I find them super interesting, and it's really super crazy because I always say this. I kept coming back to this one.
Mm-hmm.
I watched a couple that I have I'm going to cover some other ones, but I came back to this one. So in 1849, Kate Webster is born in Killane County, Wexford, Ireland, which is funny because you think of like countries, and so I'm like, it's in Killane. I think it's County Wexford, Ireland.
Okay.
Her parents were really poor, but they were really respected in town either way. They were a well-liked family. Mm-hmm. Pretty much everybody said from a super young age that Kate was a brat and always stealing. Like little things that didn't matter, but just stealing. And it wasn't even stuff because like they were poor, like food and necessities, just whatever. And so she was always known as being the troublesome kid. And she, like a lot of these stories I tell, she ran away from home as a teenager after she stole a lot of money. They're not sure. She never said how she stole it. So she got a whole bunch of money and she bought a train ticket and she ran away to Liverpool. She thought that she was going to be able to find a job, but being pretty young, she just tried to turn to a career criminal and a pickpocket. And the thing was, she was really, really bad at it. And so she would constantly get caught. And by the time she hit 18, she was arrested and charged and finally sentenced to 4 years of doing hard manual labor while she was in prison. After being released, she served the full 4 years, so she's 22 now, and after she was released, she moved to London, again, hoping to find a job, and it pretty much ended up being what she was going to do was get a job as a housemaid. It didn't really work out the way that she thought it was going to, like everything that she keeps getting herself into. And so she unfortunately has to turn to prostitution. She's had a lot of short little jail sentences in between this time. And after those, because of her, you know, you can't be careful. And so she ends up becoming pregnant through one of her clients.
Yeah.
And at this time, she says she has a son, and she says that it's like, I don't know if it's one of three men, or she just keeps saying all three at different times are the father. She continues to do these petty crimes. It was never harmful, hurtful, dangerous. It was just little crap all the time. And she would continuously get in trouble and do little jail stints. And her son, whose name is John, would get left with the other maids that she would work with. They used to call them char women.
Oh, okay.
Char. I don't know why, but like I don't know.
And
so, yeah,
I'm thinking women. Like charcoal.
Charcoal, maybe, because you're always stoking the fires and stuff.
Maybe.
And so she would leave her son with a fellow maid that she was friends with named Sarah Crease every single time she would go to jail. And so
that's nice maid. So
right,
I feel like
I'm not taking care of your kid. Nice friend, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, what did she do? Like leave her money behind? Maybe. I doubt it.
Or just offered to do some of her tasks or something in
maybe.
Exchange. Like, I'll help you with this when I get back.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that's definitely possible. In January of 1879 in Richmond, which is outside of London, she got a job as a housemaid for a 52-year-old widow. Her name was Julia Martha Thomas, and she was known to be a really nice woman. She was teeny tiny. People were smaller back then, but she was an extra tiny woman, but very nice, very pleasant, a churchgoer, a good woman around town. She had a lot of friends and neighbors, and so she was considered a really nice woman. And when her husband had passed away, he left her a pretty decent fortune. She had, I love the name of this house. It's crazy. It sounds so weird. So like, you know, our addresses, it's common most of the world is like numbers, and then wherever your street, borough, whatever. The name of where she lived, the address was 2 Mayfield Cottages. And it was like like a cute little thing tucked in the back of a neighborhood is what it sounds like. But it was a really beautiful estate, but two Mayfield Cottages. That's what it's called. So it's what it will be referred to. Okay. This is the address now that Kate is living at with her boss, Julia.
And her son?
No,
wait. The son's
her son is not mentioned. I don't know. I'm thinking that yes, but truly he's not mentioned, and he won't be mentioned anymore in this story.
Oh,
so that's weird. But I will look it up and I will let you know, because it didn't occur to me as I was writing it. But I'm thinking he just got left out. I don't think he mattered too much. Maybe she paid that woman to take care of him is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And because she lived at the house with Julia. This was a common thing that Julia did, was take in the housekeepers that she needed. And she wasn't crazy or strict, but she did go through a few. And so she lived with her. And Julia was really disappointed in the work that Kate did. She wasn't good. She wasn't a good housekeeper. She wasn't very nice, apparently, to Julia. And she was always out at the partying at a pub down the way called the Hole in the Wall. And so, yeah.
I'm loving all these names.
I know, right?
I want to go to the Hole in the Wall.
The Hole in the Wall. And so that caused a lot of problems. And Kate would complain around town, being like at the pub with the people that were there that she was chit-chatting with, that Julia, slaved her. Like, well, you're not your job to be slave, but like you're being paid to clean,
to work,
to work, not get drunk and party. So so she was always harassing her about like the job she did, and I just wiped down the counter, and she would come over and wipe her finger and it was garbage, and and the thing was that people were like, this is not really like her character, but whatever. So people knew that it wasn't working out because she had been kind of saying, and Julia finally was just like, hey, it was barely even a month later, on February 28th, she told her, you're not doing a good job. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to let you go. And Kate had begged her to just let her stay a few more days until March 2nd, and then she would have something else lined up. And Julia was like, okay, sure, that's fine. And I'll let you stay. And so, as I had mentioned, Julia was a really devout churchgoer. And so a couple of Sundays have gone by now, and there's no Mrs. Thomas.
Oh, I knew it. I knew where this was going.
So her friends, the other parishioners, and even the neighbors, because she was an active woman. She was not disabled or crippled, but she wasn't going to clean her own house. Yeah, exactly. So she was a woman about the town. So nobody was seeing her anymore. Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Okay. So nobody was seeing her anymore, and they started to get suspicious or worried. You know, did she hurt herself? Is she sick? Like,
Yeah.
But as we talked about in our old scrapbooking episode, like letters and calling cards, these were a thing. So, she would have been like, I'm sick, or I went out of town. Sorry. And so people are, like I said, they're getting suspicious. Well, at this point, Kate had already moved back to the Hammersmith district, which was not far away, and it's where she lived right before she came to work for Julia. And her neighbor, she had become friends with her neighbor at this point. His name is Henry Porter, and he has a son. And Robert, sorry, I'm getting to it. I didn't write it down. Doesn't matter right now. I moved on. And she's, telling him like, oh, my last name is Thomas now because I got married and I got a whole bunch of money.
Oh, gosh.
And hey, do you know anyone that can help me? I need to sell some old furniture that I don't need. I inherited a house. And the house is called Two Mayfield Cottages. And so...
Well, two cottages?
I know, right? Mayfield two cottages. Yeah, two Mayfield cottages.
Two Mayfield cottages.
And so... Henry's like, yeah, I will totally find someone for you. And she left his house as they were in the middle of dinner still. But she was like, oh, I have an errand I have to run. I forgot. I'm going to go do it. And then I'll be right back. When she comes back, she's now missing her carpet bag. And they're really not... Well, guy's not going to be like, whatever, you left your purse somewhere. But he did notice that her large carpet bag was missing. If people are wondering, a carpet bag was a specific, it's made out of like carpet material, and it was very heavy duty and it held a lot. And if you've seen the movie Mary Poppins, that's a carpet bag. Big. It was like big, it was an overnight bag. There you go. It was an overnight bag. Like it held a lot. It wasn't a normal purse you took around. And that her bag was missing. So,
like,
I know, right?
Like, where she lay behind a bag.
So Henry's son helps her the next day take a really heavy box from Two Mayfield Cottages to a spot by a bridge where Kate said a friend was coming because it's valuables and materials that she's got to sell or whatever. A friend's going to come take it. And he's like, okay, here's your box. Bye. And later, he mentions that he heard a little splash. But like that was it. Yeah. He didn't think anything of it. Obviously, she's not jumping in the water. So
why would she wait until he was like further away? It's like, I'm just gonna wait until I barely
out
see
of
him.
Splashing range. I know. It was ridiculous. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe she didn't mean she was like
maybe she's getting in position and then
oopsie. So later when she comes home, these are her neighbors, she's like, oh yeah, I met up with my friend, they took the box, no problem. So he's like, oh, okay, whatever. I was just hearing things. So a few days later after this, she gets into contact with the man that Henry told her to call. His name is John Church, and he is a broker, which is also called a farts. I don't remember. It has a really funny name, but anyway, he's a broker, so he like buys and sells furnitures and materials. And so he looks over all of the furniture at 2 Mayfield cottages, and he's, this, and this, and I'll give you 68 pounds. I always love to give updates. This was a really difficult amount of money, but it's looking like $3,000 for all that furniture, because it was like high-end stuff. And so she greedily and happily accepted that offer, and he took it away. No problems, whatever. March 5th, a coal porter has found a heavy box. Everybody knows you find a heavy box and you're like poking it. Like, what's in here? So he opened it up, and he is immediately met with this just disgusting, horrible sight. It is a mutilated woman's upper torso. It's missing a head.
Oh my gosh.
The legs are cut off and the arms are there, but the foot was missing.
What?
Yeah. So at this point, pretty recently after this, there's no head. They can't identify her. Unfortunately, that's how, one of my past stories that will come up, they put a head, did it already come? I don't know. I'm ruining it. But no, they put a head up in a spike in the town to be able to look at that. That was like one of our past episodes. So they don't have a head. They can't, there's literally nothing they can do.
Wow.
So, so after that, they find a foot. Like tossed somewhere in the nearby town.
Weird. Why did she forget the foot behind and was like, oh no?
So they assume it's got to match with this body. This body is missing, its foot. As our past cases, they had pretty decent detective skills at this point, and so it was all recent enough. But there's only so much they can do unless somebody could come forward and be like, "Oh, I happen to know Mrs. Thomas had a birthmark on." Yeah, but. Nobody sees your nude body back then. Even your maids were like,
or your bare feet.
Eyes so because of this, they are now calling the crime the Barnes mystery, because the box was found underneath the Barnes Railway Bridge.
Okay.
She was buried in a public cemetery because of no identification, so it's really sad. With the body being unknown, the police could only do so much, and the case slowed and went cold pretty much. They, asking people in the area, what did you see? What did you hear? But they have nothing to go on.
Yeah, and even if they knew that she was missing or something, I'm sure there's a bunch of missing women that's like, well, you can't just definitively say that it's her.
Yeah, it's not, it can't be exactly like you said. They can't totally decide because nobody made a missing persons report from her church. They just noticed she's gone.
Yeah. That's sad that she was so involved, but then they were like, oh, she's just not here anymore.
She's gone.
And nobody went and knocked and looked around.
Right?
What?
Well, people are absolutely getting suspicious, especially because since they found a body. So March 18th, a group of movers were at 2 Mayfield cottages, and they're emptying the place out. And now neighbors who hadn't seen Julia for weeks now are they're showing up, and they're like, who the heck are you? What is going on? What do you know? What can you tell us?
Yeah.
Nowadays, people would be like, I'm not telling you. Who the heck are you? But back then, they were like, oh, Mrs. Thomas is selling the house. This is what the movers are telling the neighbors. Mrs. Thomas is selling the house. And they're like, okay, that's weird. Why wouldn't she tell us? That's ridiculous. So immediately they're totally suspicious, and they let police know. They're like, something is going on. This woman is missing, and this lady. So, they called upon this alleged Mrs. Thomas, and the police are talking to her, and the neighbors are like, that's her housekeeper.
Yeah.
Kate Webster. That is not Mrs. Thomas. This is not Julia.
Yeah.
So she's now being, talked to by the police, and they're telling her, okay, you're her maid. I get it. You're in the house. And she's trying to, she moved. I'm helping her, whatever. None of it makes sense. Of course it doesn't.
2 times in one episode. What are the chances?
Ooh, yeah. So obviously none of it's making sense. There's no plausible explanation of any kind. But there's still nothing they can charge her with. There's nothing that they can do. So because nobody has gone into the house exactly, the stuff is just being pulled out. So she flees. She goes back home to Killaney in County Wexford in Ireland, and she's hoping that that would be enough to deter the authorities. Well, now that she's gone, because again, like, I don't know what the heck warrants were back then, if they even existed. So they had not investigated her house like Mrs. Thomas's house. Yes, to look and go over everything. So now she's gone, and they are there. They're looking through everything, and they find something not right.
Is it a lot of blood?
The walls are covered in blood spatter.
What?
Yes, the walls are covered in blood splatter. There looks to be burnt human bones.
What?
On the grate of the stove.
Ew.
And a thick, fatty substance behind the laundry boiler. Now, the laundry boiler is our version of a hot water heater. It was a big, giant copper cauldron that was masoned around, and it kept a fire burning underneath. That was where you got your hot water from.
Yeah.
Bath time, everything came from that. So yeah, a thick, nasty, fatty substance. So we're talking human bones and blood and fat.
Behind it?
Behind the boiler.
Ew.
Yeah. So now they're like, we have to find her.
Yeah.
And they went back. They were able to find her from her home. She was caught and arrested and immediately taken back to the Richmond area that the crime had occurred to be put on trial. So the trial began on July 2nd of 1879. Okay. And it got an insane amount of attention from the world because this was, unfortunately, people still do it, and we still watch these crazy high profile crime cases, so we're no different. But back then the crowds were just no, that happened here too. The Johnny Depp and Amber Heard thing. So they were just gathered outside, but we're talking people came from far and wide.
Really?
The Crown Prince of Sweden came to watch this trial.
That's crazy.
He was going to be the future king because the thing was, it was a woman. She committed a horrific, disgusting, like, that's gross now, but back then was like, holy moly. You know, women had weak constitutions is what they thought. And then on top of that, like one of my last cases, she had the nerve to kill somebody better than her. To take out a member of society, a higher social standing than herself, which was more offensive.
Yeah.
But I think that
when class was like really
exactly. And so she denied all of it, and she placed the blame on Henry Porter, which was her friend and neighbor, and his son, and the broker John Church.
What?
Yes, I'm almost positive his son's name was Robert.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I think I get to this later in there because I remembered that I didn't write it. I think his name's Robert. It's going to bother me forever. Sorry. So she tried to blame it on them and saying that, you know, it was during dinner when she was bragging about working for this wealthy woman and all this, you know, that they were now plotting to go rob her and, you know, sell her stuff and kill her. So luckily for them, they had really strong alibis. And so they were ruled out, likely because they were all at work. Like they worked.
Doing what they're supposed to do.
Not killing people.
Yeah.
So then she ended up saying that, oh no, actually, just kidding, it was my past lover, possibly the father of my son, only named as Mr. Strong. And because, see, the thing was, back at this point in the UK, this really horrific, like, let's put women down law had come into account. That was, if you got someone pregnant out of wedlock, you didn't have to pay for it, and you had no responsibility forever. And so she was basically saying, because he was so terrible to me and abandoned me and whatnot, I had to turn to crime. And so the thing was, people were kind of like, yeah, that sucks, but nobody's killing everybody.
Yeah.
Like, what? That's not an excuse. That's not enough.
Yeah, not that crime.
No, of course not. No crimes, but definitely not that one.
Yeah, maybe stealing, but not killing.
Not killing. Yeah, dismembering. There's so much to it.
It is.
So
wait, they connected it that it was the dismembered body was.
Yeah, because she was the only one at that point that was missing in the area that was petite enough,
okay.
and old lady
and all
skin.
and all the blood
and the blood and the missing nothing. She's not there. So yes, that's how they connected.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Okay, no, it's fine. I was just clarifying.
Yeah. After it only took about a week. I think it was like 6 days, and she was convicted of her murder, and she was going to be charged with the death penalty. But she says, no, you can't. I'm pregnant.
What is she?
So this is the thing that happens at this time. What they would do was they would call in something called a jury of matrons. They collected these women specifically for Kate's trial directly from the courthouse.
Okay.
But all it was a group of basically, they had to be mothers and like middle-aged.
Okay.
Because they would know pregnancy.
Uh-huh.
And so what they would do was they would examine her body respectfully, but, there are changes to a woman's body that you can, darkening of nipples, areolas, but like all kinds of things, including, darker marks on your stomach, because especially she's had a child before.
Yeah.
So there's all these kinds of things. But one of them specifically was just like, let me feel your stomach and see if there's something moving.
Yeah.
So,
I know. I remember when I was very early on with, Troy, I could feel. I could feel a little like
it feels
bump in there.
swimmy and strange too. Sometimes, like when they're moving and they're little, and you realize like it's so small, you're not feeling what you think is movement, but it feels like a roller coaster.
No, but I remember pushing
you had
on
a little
my.
bump.
I had a little. It felt like a little tiny marble in there. Like I could totally feel the baby.
And it's like your little uterus is opening.
Yeah, and so that would be another thing is you can actually
they knew
feel,
to palpate a little bit. So they try it out and they're like, nope.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not 100%. But come on, we all know she's lying.
She's lying.
She is lying to save her bottom. So
I would have just been like, okay, fine, we'll give it a couple months and then we'll see.
Exactly. Yeah. But nope, they didn't. They said, oh, okay, well, you are sentenced to death by hanging. So the day before her hanging, she had a priest visit her, and give her her last rites. And this is when she decided to confess to the murder of Julia. She said, and I quote, "I alone committed the murder of Mrs. Townsend." I'm sorry, Thomas. Whoopsie. I just ruined the quote of Mrs. Thomas. She said that, herself, Kate had come home and she was really drunk and she was really late because she did live there.
Yeah.
And so she was drunk and late, and that Julia was angry and yelling and being mean and hateful. And so that Kate ended up being so mad that she went to the top of the stairs and she just grabbed her and threw her down the stairs.
Oh, okay.
And when this did not result in her dying, she strangled her to death with her bare hands.
Oh my God.
In a drunken rage.
What?
Yeah. So now she realizes, like, oh my God, I have a dead body, and what am I supposed to do? So she said that she cut up the body as best as she could, and she boiled them in the laundry boiler.
Ew.
So now that this point has come out, there's rumors going around saying that she possibly like sold some meat, but it's a rumor. I mean, there's no proven anything. But then they're also saying that fatty gross substance that was behind the boiler was like overflow.
That's what I was thinking. So I'm like, why is it behind?
Yeah, noodles and like the starch overflows, and you can see it. So it's like it overflowed, and so the fat was around the bottom area. And the other rumor going around was that she tried to sell this fat as what we know as drippings for gravy, as drippings, and but again, it's a rumor. Nobody really knows.
Yeah, that does kind of sound like rumors, because I doubt she would just
mill.
like like, well, what kind of
she's
meat?
pretty
like,
messed up.
I don't know. But there was a
yeah.
lot of the body in the trunk, right? In that chest.
So here we go.
Oh, God.
So the reason that the foot was not in there was because the body took up too much of the box.
Okay.
And so she couldn't close the lid. So she just panicked and like, "Fwaching!" and just threw her foot. Yeah. So that's what she said about that. So that was on July 28th. July 29th, 1879, Kate Webster was hanged for the murder.
Okay.
But I have an update. That is crazy because it was like 13 years ago, but this is so funny because I crack up. I kept telling you, I kept coming back to this and I don't know why. In 2010, our favorite Sir David Attenborough, in case anybody doesn't know, he is an amazing everything. Yeah. He's a biologist and he does television shows and narrates and he narrates a billion and he's amazing. And we always have talked about like when he passes because he's like 93, but he's still in the field. He's amazing, but I'm gonna cry. It's gonna be terrible. But anyway, so he had bought a building that was a property right next to his house, which ended up being the Hole in the Wall pub.
What?
Yes. And so during the renovation and excavation, because it's a really old building, construction workers found a skull.
What?
So they immediately
took it to the bar with her?
What? They turn it into the police, and police investigators said, and I quote, I won't mess it up this time. Fracture marks consistent with a fall down the stairs and low collagen levels consistent with it being boiled.
Oh my gosh.
I got the goosebumps. It's so gross.
That is.
So I know. So
all that time later, was it buried there?
I'm guessing it was. Yeah, I'm thinking she like threw it down a shaft. It's like it was a rubbly, messed up building. So it was being completely redone.
But it wasn't like that in the 1800s?
No, so I don't know. They didn't say. Yeah. Crazy. So the coroners, isn't that crazy? A coroner got to look at like 131 years old skull.
That's crazy.
And make a verdict on a homicide. And so the coroner's final verdict was that the skull did belong to Julia Thomas, and her body was able to be complete 131 years later.
Wow, that is crazy.
Yep. And like 3 of my other freaking cases, she's one of the last women to be hung in that area too.
Really?
Yes. I'm telling you, I'm like, it's these weird coincidences. I'm like, I just can't leave them. I keep coming back to these, and I was like, I have to. That
was like when me and Jack went on that little like date thing where we went to Red Robin and then we went shopping and then went to the brewery.
Yeah.
We were at Red Robin and I was like, what case should I do? What do you think? And this was very early on in our podcast. And he was like, oh, what about like it was something along the lines of like the last woman to be hanged or whatever. And so I was just looking at like the last execution or whatever and different countries and states and stuff. And so I think her name was probably on the list, but I don't remember. That was a while ago. But wow, that's crazy. The last woman or the last
one of the last women to be hung there.
Wow.
Hanged.
I know it sounds stupid when you say it. It's like it doesn't really sound like proper English.
No, it doesn't at all.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like I've heard that case before, but I probably haven't, just forgot.
Dude, I have. There's like really great newsprint articles, and of course like those I try to add a couple of those, and there's surprisingly, because it's towards the end of the 1800s, there was a lot that was available, and oh god, her picture, I'll show you.
I know. I think I don't go as far back as the 1800s because of the lack of information, and I don't like that. Like what we were talking about with the unsolved mysteries and stuff of just all these unsolved cases. I don't like the not knowing.
Right.
And
doesn't she just look like
she looks crazy? She does. She looks like
wicked old witch. And she's scary. She's real deep set eyes.
Yeah, little beady, like deep eyes. Yeah, man, she looks crazy.
Okay.
I would not hire her to work in my house.
You freaking me out, lady.
I know. Wow, that was really good. Good job.
This is really long. Oh
I know
goodness.
it is. It's not that long.
No, I don't think it's even our longest.
I think I talk more about butter.
Okay, so we started talking about butter at 12 minutes, and I think it took you like 30.
Yeah, okay,
So,
because
no,
I was
we
like,
did
oh no,
okay.
mine's like super short. It never is.
Every single time. Like, I think this is short because it was like not even front to back pages. It's oh wait, is it?
It is.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
1,
Except for the last page.
2, 3.
I know.
4. It's exactly 4 front to back pages.
Yeah,
it's
and
not.
so...
It doesn't seem like it's that much, but like it's the interjections. It's like the final thought.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I forgot that. It's me going. That is totally not what that says because I messed up the quote. Like,
no, and that's like when I started typing up because I last night I asked Elaine like, come over and watch a movie with me. She was like, I gotta do my homework.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm doing mine tomorrow. So
I did finish it today too.
Yeah, I was like halfway done, and so I did.
I'm struggling
more than half because
so
I was like, oh, it's probably gonna be like 4 pages, and then I got to page 4, and then I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more, and then there's a butter lamb. So, and then when you were saying like she was a maid, and I was like, oh, this is in like the late 1800s. I wonder if she was. Because the maids
making
would
butter lambs,
like do the butter sculptures for the banquet table, and
it would probably have been bad anyway.
I know because she was bad at everything,
even killing apparently.
Yeah, that was close to being the 3rd time.
Yeah,
we do that too often. Okay, well, with that, stay crafty
and not cry me.
Bye.